morning, my friends. Thanks so much for coming back. I really appreciate it. I'm glad you came back to see me because this week at least I can see you. Last week was pretty doggone blurred. And I did go to if for those of you who are new, I had, my eyes were just as red and puffy as could be. It turned out Monday I went to the walk-in clinic and the doctor there said, "Oh, it looks like conjunctivitis to me, but I have glaucoma," so he backed off and said, "You need to see your ophthalmologist." He did give me a prescription for antihistamine drops. I already use drops 5 times a day, plus wetting agents, wetting drops. It's WETTING, like refresh or sustain or something, to keep the eyes moist. So I'm very familiar with eye drops. On Thursday, I went to the ophthalmologist who said it probably is not contagious conjunctivitis or pink eye, but more something that I'm allergic to, perhaps in my garden, when it happened, it was a Wednesday. I was doing a lot of weeding, and it was that night that they started getting very itchy, and the next day the lids were swollen. The white part of your eye is the sclera, and it was red. Not just bloodshot, but red. And I felt like I was looking through funny glass, So anyway, I'm much better this week. So let's just get to it. I'm saving 1,000 pounds. This is my challenge for me to save it from going into a landfill and instead feeding my soil. If you want to come along with me, I'd love it. And I do try to give you tips along the way. And this week we're going to do it just a little different. Now, I did very well this week, not as great as last week because I was just staying inside the whole week. And, but my neighbor Brian did bring down, he had a smaller load than usual, and I have been very careful to almost stay away from it because Brian does have his lawn sprayed. It's supposedly with an organic spray, something that once it dries, your dogs and cats can walk on it. Well, that tells me that while it's wet, that they probably couldn't ingest it and be safe. So I use it as a weed deterrent rather than giving it to my worms or anything like that. I came out with 34 pounds, 3.7 ounces this week. Last week I was up to 642 pounds, 4.4. So with that, it gives me 676 pounds, 8.1. So I'm way over where I need to be, and that's just great. On the good side, when you get your prescriptions, they put them in these nice bags that are 90% already recycled goods. So we're going to give it the final burial, along with any instructions that come off of these tiny little bottles that, if I could see that well, I probably wouldn't have glaucoma. So I'm going to come around and I want to show you this from this side. So hang on. Let me just scooch out and see where we go from here. Let me just take it from that side. There we go. All right. So moving right along. By the way, happy Father's Day to anybody. I'm sorry I didn't want to miss you guys. But let me just show you what I am saving. First of all, I have my little trusty list here in case I forget anything. And but let me start from this end and just say that I save on the carbon side. Like these were Christmas card boxes. Any of this can be saved. Any of your egg cartons. They make wonderful little planters if you want to get your stuff started, your little seedlings started. If not, break it up. It's great for your worms. This type of cardboard is kind of at the end of its cycle. It's been used a couple times, and it will, I mean, if it gets wet, it just absorbs immediately. There's no holdback. And so you could use it in your garden. Any of your toilet paper towel rolls, that is great for either cut it up, or if you have a worm bin, sometimes it's fun just to stick them in like this. And a month later you go back and they're full of castings and worms. Any of my canned vegetables that are no salt added, I save the liquids. Obviously, I'm not weighing that, but this is really good for your vegetables. Go ahead and water your plants with it. I always add my things to my rainwater whenever I'm watering my plants. Anytime I'm rinsing my rice, and putting that, and I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to rinse it, and then I drain that water off, and I use that because it's starchy water, and it also has a little NPK in it, which is nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. My eggshells. Now we're kind of through the carbon side over here, and let's get into the fruits and veggies. And if you have fruit, save your fruit. I either have it in a container in my freezer, or if I know I'm going to be feeding my worms, I just leave it open like this. And then this is a great fun treat, is that I take the ones that are frozen and then I pulverize some fruit and put it in there so it's kind of mushy. And then when the worms come up, it's like a little, I won't say it's a trap, but it's it lures them in, and then they'll stay there because they're not able to eat through this so quickly. So I can go through a couple days later if I'm trying to harvest worms, and I can just pull them out of that, and then they're not all through the castings and what have you. If you have any old birdseed, grind it up. It's great, whether it's for your pots, your garden, your whatever. Shrimp shells, I pulverize those, and they are great. It's a food. It's chitin. It's great for for your garden. Adding back into it. I like to add my eggshells. I like to grind mine completely. I don't like to just hand grind it. Coffee grounds. The coffee grounds themselves add nitrogen back in. I wouldn't plant something directly in 2 cups of coffee grounds, but I would take those coffee grounds and sprinkle them all around, either in the soil, or if I want to deter bugs, I sprinkle it on top. Over the years I've realized that you can add the tea bag to your worm bin. However, if it's Twining tea and it happens to be the Irish breakfast, this will look like cellophane at the end. It's not completely cotton. It won't break down. So what I usually do is open them up and I empty it, and then I discard this part. If you have anything like, any Jell-O, cake mix, anything that's gotten old, these things have a shelf life. After a certain amount of time, you can either feed it to your worms, or you can just put it in the compost, and boy, that'll really feed your bacteria. Anything in your cereal line. It's just 2 of us, so everything gets used in our house. We don't run into the problem of, it's stale and throw it away. We'll either make breadcrumbs or what have you. So, it doesn't get used. But if it does in your house, if it gets stale in your house, feed it to your worms, feed it to your compost, dig a trench, put it back in your soil, your bacteria and microbes will love it. Anything like potato chips, any of those things, grind them up. It does have heavy salt, so if you're doing worms, I would be careful on how I did that. I wouldn't give them a whole massive amount. I was just watching something the other day, and the gentleman took his potted plant, and it happened to be a peace lily, and it was dying back. So he cleaned up the peace lily. He took it all out, and then he refreshed his soil. He took a half a cup of Quaker's oats. They weren't ground, but he took that and 2 teaspoons of Epsom salts, and he mixed that back into his soil, and then watered it and replanted his pot. And he said the Quaker's oats will refresh the soil. So I can't guarantee that, but I'm just passing it on. One other thing that I think is most interesting is if you have anything like your onions, and anytime you're cutting an onion, you're going to come out with skins. Take the skins and soak them in water. Soak them 24 hours, 48 hours, and then use that water in your spray bottle if you're trying to deter any bugs. And then one last thing was this is my grass clippings from last week. This was Brian's grass clippings, and so I'm not going to dig into it, but you can see that they are lovely grass clippings. This is Sunday, and he cut his grass on Thursday. So they've been sitting here, and I'm already getting not the fresh green grass smell, but you can smell that it's starting to get strong. So I want to make sure that I use these very, very soon. And the way I use them, because I'm not putting them because they're not mine, and because I know that he sprays and he does use chemical fertilizer, as well as any chemical sprays to act as a herbicide. I put down cardboard, and I really like when I put down cardboard to put down corrugated cardboard, because it takes a little longer for it to break down. And so if I'm making a weed deterrent, if I'm trying to clear an area where I don't want to have to get back behind those plants and weed them, then I will lay this down first, and then I will try to put down 2, 3, 4, 5 inches. I don't care how much it is. If I have a lot of grass clippings, then I will go ahead and make that a really thick mat. And the next time it will break this down over about 6 months. And I figure that whatever was in the grass clippings has probably dissipated, being watered. Our irrigation goes off a few times a week, and plus we have rainwater that kind of cleans that all out. So that's pretty much it. I don't know, I didn't go through my little list of everything that I've told you in the past. I hope you walk away with some good tips, and I hope that if you decide to follow this series, that you do know that there's 24 weeks, and if you just want to hit the playlist and let it play forward, one, I'd sure appreciate it, but also I think you might find at the end of each one that I've given a few little extra tips. One last thing I wanted to show you, and I was so pleased with this, is my tomatoes. I'm in zone 9, so I've been picking tomatoes since really the 1st of May. And this is a nice little cherry tomato. But these are the Everglades tomatoes. And this was just what we got yesterday morning. Rick and I went out, and I've probably had about, I think I've had about 20 of them, because yummy. I mean, they're like sugar. Excuse me. Trying to swallow here and look down. But this is kind of how I like to pick them. Rick goes in and he picks them one at a time. I like to find a cluster that's complete, and there's like 8 on the cluster, and I can just take a little scissors and nip them off. So anyway, that was it. And what I do is I try to, I've mentioned this before, I try to rotate. Like this will go in tonight's dinner, and that'll go in tomorrow night's dinner. The Everglades do not hold up as well. They will bloom and bear fruit in the heat of the summer, and we have picked it in January after a frost, and there's still ripe fruit out there. So it is, Everglades are down in South Florida, and how it ever got that name, I don't know. It's also known as a currant tomato. So if you run across either, they are really a great one. They are an indeterminate, and they will spread. If you have room that you can just let them go on a rack, a wire rack, or you can attach them to a fence, railing, something like that, they'll go in all directions, and they will produce like mad. So be warned, if you do grow them, that you do need area. I think that's probably it. Can't think of anything else to tell you. I hope all the dads, whether you're a dad of children or a great uncle, or my husband's case, we've had animals for our entire marriage, and now we're down to worms. So he's the worm dad, and he was thrilled this morning to get a few gifts from the worms and me. So I will end this here. I'll say I hope everyone has a great day, and that you have a wonderful Sunday, and you have something to appreciate, because I sure do. I have a great life. Thank you so much for visiting, and I hope you'll subscribe, ring the bell, and come back and see me next week. Bye-bye.